Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Calling the meeting to order at 6:08. Coming back from closed session, approving the student waiver number 2024-01 with a roll call vote of 4-0.
Oh, yep, thank you. Si necesitan traducción o interpretación, hay aparatos ahí atrás, pueden conseguir uno y todo va a estar traducido o interpretado para usted. Y también en Zoom hay interpretación al fondo de la pantalla y tienen que escoger dónde está el globo. Okay. All right. So we do not have any adjustments to the agenda, and we should note that Trustee Romo Flores is not with us tonight, and we are also missing our Director of Business Services, who couldn't be here, and she's supposed to pledge allegiance. So Laurel Green has volunteered to lead us in the pledge.
All right, so celebrating our success, we have 2024 fifth grade science camp.
So I believe that Principal McGuire will start us off and introduce some of our visitors today.
Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm going to keep it short and let our students and teacher do the talking, but we're very excited to follow up on our tradition of doing fifth grade science camp this year for the first time at Walker Creek Ranch, which is in West Marin. In address is Petaluma, but it's a ways out there. But it was a beautiful and wonderful experience. We went the first week of March. And I'll just start out because I know that the students are going to tell you about it, but to first just think it's a huge lift on behalf from the teachers. And also we had 13 parent chaperones, but I just want to thank Lisa Phipps, Mrs. Phipps, who's here tonight with, and she'll introduce her students, but thank the teachers for all their work to make this happen.
Thank you. I'm going to let the students introduce themselves.
My name is JJ, and I'm a fifth grade student at FMC.
Hi, my name is Siglali, and I am going to talk about the hike. One day we went on a hike at the highest mountain in Walker Creek Ranch. It took 3 miles to get to and 3 miles to get down, so it took 6 miles in total. The solo hike was fun because your naturalist set cards up a mountain and you did the hike by yourself.
The cabins were amazing. They had nice bunk beds. There was 10 to 12 kids in a cabin, and there was electricity, heating, and cooling. We had cabin leaders and our own space. The chaperones were the cabin leaders. You could play games, cards. It had comfy beds. Some cabins had a bathroom or near the bathhouse, and the bunk beds had railing.
The Barn Boogie is 2 hours of fun dancing, exciting games, and silly songs. At the Boogie, you can dance Ukraine dancing, El Cabello de Rodeo, freeze dance, and cha-cha slide. We played limbo and sang Shooting Star together. The barn had cool lights and a dance floor. This was a moment to remember forever.
So with the food, we sat with our own school in the dining hall. The caterer made all the food. For dinner, we had chicken tenders, barbecue chicken, mac and cheese, potatoes, pasta, and teriyaki chicken with rice. For breakfast, we had scrambled eggs, French toast, breakfast burritos, sausage, fruit, and cereal. For lunch, we had sandwiches, homemade chips, real chicken tenders. For desserts, we had brownies, blondies, cookies, ice cream sandwiches. All day hike, we had the lunch on the trail. It was the sandwich and chips. And they also have dietary needs if you don't need them.
The night hike was super fun. We passed around the courage candle, stargazed while listening to songs and stories. It was really beautiful at night. We weren't allowed to bring flashlights because we wanted to see the beauty of the stars. It was slippery, but we helped each other, and that's what made it special.
I want to acknowledge the bravery of these kids who stepped up in front of you. They said, it looks like they're in court. And like an acceptance speech at the Oscars, I have a few people to thank. I want to thank organizations like the Kiwanis, Rotary, Montage, Big John's, Garrett's, Mambo's Pizza for their money. They donated items for our fundraisers. They let us set up tables out front so that we could fundraise and meet with the public. I'd like to thank the PTO for guaranteeing that every student got to go. The parents for all their time and their money and their supplies and their fundraising and their taking 4 days off of work so they could chaperone. And of course, I'd like to thank Erica McGuire for her ending support of us and chasing down every last detail to make sure it was a complete and utter success. So thank you very much.
It really sounds too good to be true. I don't believe this, so I'm demanding that next year I be invited to go camping with you. No, this really sounds exciting and fun. Thank you. Thank you for doing this and for your time, and Erica McGuire for your commitment and also the commitment of the school. Thank you.
And I just wanted to add thank you so much to the students for coming and telling us yourselves about your experience. I love hearing the menu items. I love hearing about the hikes. The pictures are beautiful. I'm like tearing up. It looks like you guys had such a great time. So congratulations on putting together an amazing experience.
No more than that, or we'd have to agendize. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Moving on to any public comments on consent on non-agenda items.
We do have a public comment on a non-agenda item. It's Jessica Pilling.
Hi. Hi, guys.
Hi.
I was here about, well, first off, that was a really cool presentation, obviously. I loved all the pictures and all the food breakdowns, too. That sounded very good. But I was here a year ago, and I spoke to you guys about the synthetic pesticides, and I just wanted to give a brief update on that. You have a new maintenance director who is working on that, which is great. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you for the follow-up on that. And I just wanted to talk about an upcoming concern that maybe should be on your radar. My understanding is that there's a few portables that are going to be removed at HES coming up, and artificial turf is set to go in. Fortunately, this hasn't happened yet. I did send you all an email. It was also printed, and there's copies here, but I don't know if you got both pages. I think only one page. So, or you have a back. Ours don't have backs out here. So I encourage you to check out the links on that and see everything from the city of Healdsburg to the town of Windsor has kind of realized that artificial turf is not the best actually for the environment and health reasons. Everything from microplastics and PFAs to it getting extremely hot and burning kids' feet in the sun. I know at one point it was kind of lauded like, oh, this is this great thing we should do it instead of actual grass. But now we know better. And, you know, the city of Healdsburg has a rebate program for people taking out their lawns to conserve water, but they actually don't even give you the rebate if you're going to put in artificial turf because of all of these health reasons. So everyone nearby and kind of nationwide and within the state, even the governor has set up bans that cities can enact for artificial turf. So I just wanted to bring that up as we still have time. It hasn't been put in. And I think we should pause before we put it in and maybe think of an alternative or discuss also with Dennis Vickery, the maintenance supervisor. Just want to put that in front of you because we still have time and we don't want to go down a mistake road here if we don't have to. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
All right, approval of consent agenda.
So we need a motion to approve.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so next up, we do need to open a public hearing for consideration of the developer fee justification study. So you want to gavel us into an open public hearing on developer fees? You can leave. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah. All right, so public hearing's open. Do we have any public comments? Hearing none, we can close the public hearing. Thank you. And we have in the audience today joining us, Mr. Ken Reynolds, who is from the president of SchoolWorks, who did the developer fee study for us. So Ken, thank you so much for being here today.
You're welcome. And good evening. We do have a quick presentation to bring you up to speed on the work we did and why we do it. And so, and then after our presentation, then you'll have the actual agenda item to consider approval of the study and updating your fees. So again, I always like to go over some basics. Again, this is our first time working with your district on this project. So developer fees are just a common source of funding for school facility projects. And we actually, in our report, identify all the different types of projects that can be used, you can use your fees on, that you collect. The biggest issue that the reasons we come here and do a presentation every few years is the state does an inflation adjustment. And they do that every 2 years in the even years. And so they just met in January of this year and approved 7.84% increase. And the process they use to set the new maximum collection rates is based on the inflation adjustment in cost to build schools. And so they calculated that it costs 8% more now than it did 2 years ago. And so that's the reason for the adjustment. And so the new rates are now $5.17 per square foot for residential projects like new homes, and 84 cents per square foot for commercial projects. And so that's basically businesses. And our next slide really gives you a visual reference of those changes that have happened over time. And one thing you'll notice is that we've had some more significant adjustments when the adjustment this year and 2 years ago. The rate of increase has increased significantly, and you've probably noticed that if you've done any facility projects. The cost of doing facility projects has gone up significantly these last 4 years also. Our next slide, again, talks about the reasons we do a level 1 study. And obviously it's to make sure you're still justified in collecting the fees, and especially that you are allowed to collect those increases as the inflation adjustments take place. And of course, we used your local yield rate. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And so we're really looking at your local statistics, right? How many students are you generating on average from each home? What size homes are being built? We look at all that data. And one of the newest requirements in the studies is we want to make sure and identify the planned use of funds. Again, we're always paying attention to what's happening in the industry. And as different school districts get challenged on their studies, they're always fine-tuning the requirements in the studies. And so that's one of our newest ones where we've tried to keep up to date with all the newest requirements in education code and government codes. Sometimes districts will like to compare their numbers to neighboring districts. And of course, with level 1 studies, we're always limited to that maximum rate. But our the very last bullet here does show that, right, our calculations show that your need came out to be $5.63. So we just slightly above what that state maximum is. But if that number would have been less, then instead of the maximum, right, we would have only been able to collect, what we could justify. But the key factors that go into that calculation, including your yield rate, which is 0.2195 students. So basically, for about every 5 homes, you have 1 student. And then the other thing we do is we look at the permits that are pulled for over the last 3, 4, 5 years, so we can understand what's the average size new housing unit. And that came in at 1,409. And again, since the fee is a per square foot, if you build a larger home, you pay more in fees. You build a smaller home or like an apartment complex, right? The per unit is a lot less because it is based on the square footage. Then our next slide talks about how can we use the developer fees? And obviously, if you have a whole new development going in and you need to build a new school, that's where most districts use the fees in the past. But again, a lot of times nowadays where development is occurring, it's not at a significant level, and so a lot of times we'll see we're trying to add buildings to existing schools. Lately, though, with the change in demographics across our state, the more common, and the age of our schools, the more common use of developer fees now is either modernization work where we're extending the useful life of our schools, or taking old portables or old buildings that just aren't providing the educational needs and actually replacing those. So I heard you're eliminating some portables, but if you were ever to consider building something back in its place, all right, that's also an allowable use of these developer fees. And of course, land. I know it's one of the biggest challenges we've had lately in some of our older schools is the TK program, where we're needing to find space for these additional classrooms for these younger 4-year-olds. And so some of the schools I've seen have tried to expand their sites. And so again, land is another allowable use. And of course, all the planning work that goes into a project, so your architects and engineers. And then finally, we talk about our timeline. Assuming you approve the study and the resolution to increase your fees, there is a 60-day waiting period, and so the new fees would not go into effect until June 16th. And again, we look at what the average activity is going to be estimated at. Again, we unfortunately don't control the housing market, but we do our best to monitor activity. And so we're anticipating in developer fees, you're going to average collections of about $364,000 a year with the new rates that you're eligible to collect. And with that, I'd love to be able to answer any questions.
When are these fees collected? When are they collected?
They're collected when a homeowner or builder is pulling the permit. So basically, before the city issues the permit to build it, they come here and get the certification that they've paid the school fees before the city issues a permit.
Because we have, as you know, construction going on, and I won't get into the name of any place, but some are multiple units, et cetera. So presumably that money's already been generated. I'll use the Mill District. I mean, Mill Districts, there obviously they have permits, et cetera, to build.
Right.
So I'm assuming then that money has been generated and we've received that money. Is that?
Yeah, I think the Mill District, not all the permits have been pulled, so they permit the first phase and then they will permit the second, right?
Gotcha.
So some of it has, some of it hasn't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Ken, for that presentation.
Appreciate you being here, Ken. Thank you.
Welcome.
Moving on to 11.1C, increase of school facility fees on residential, commercial, and industrial construction project.
So this would be us passing the resolution to increase our fees to the maximum, and as was deemed necessary in the study and legal.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And then this is a roll call vote because it's a reso.
Vice President Lopez Jimenez.
Aye.
Trustee Potmasil. Aye. Trustee McAllister. Aye. Trustee Lopez Pardo. Thank you.
All right. So then moving on to 11.2, student learning. 608, we have a mural project at Marcy Bracera Academy.
Yeah, so super excited to introduce Freddie Veras here and Uli, who is going to present on the mural project. So this is a student-led project at Marcy.
Good evening. Here you stand here because you got to see it. All right. Good evening. Thank you for having us here. My name is Freddie Veras. I'm an advisory teacher at Marcy Becerra Academy, which is the continuation / alternative big picture learning high school on Healdsburg High School's campus. And this is. Okay. Good evening. My name is Ulises Nunez Roman. And today I will be explaining my project that I've been working on for quite some time over at Marcy Becerra Academy. Today I will be explaining my idea, why it matters to MBA, and who will be helping me, the mural location, the cost, process, and to answer any questions that you guys have. All right, my idea. The reason I would like to paint this mural is to represent MBA, to celebrate the skills and art that we have, to leave a legacy, and to make my family proud. So this idea first came up when Freddie let me do sketching for part of my learning. And then it came up, we started brainstorming, like, what else could I do for art? And he said, have you ever painted a mural? And I said, no, I've never have. And I was like, if I do, I would really like to do one and leave one for the school because they're encouraging me to do something that I love. So then we came up with the idea to do a mural over down by my teacher's classroom. So when I graduate, I'm going to leave a mural to recognize the school that helped me stay on track to graduate and just give thanks to everybody that's helping me. Okay, why it matters to MBA. So the reason it matters to MBA is because we have a diverse group in our classroom. We have Native Americans, we have Mexican people, and we have American people also. So in this mural, it will celebrate the diversity that we have, and it'll give respect to the women who were named after Marcy Becerra, and it'll give the MBA students an identity on campus and celebrate MBA's creative learning. Okay, the people that would be helping would be Thor, MBA in Big Picture Learning, Chris Vandal, Ezequiel Roman, Alex Roman, and the students of MBA because they all gave me their input on the drawing before I drew it. Go ahead, Karen. So the mural will be located just outside of room 66, which is the main Marcy Becerra Academy room. Whenever we have all school things, that's the room that we're usually in. If you look at the image, you'll see the big main square wall with the cactus in front of it. The cactus planter is on rollers, so it will be rolled very easily away. It will not be integrated into the mural. And we're going to use that main square that's right there, the big square just that the cactus in front of. That'll be the main canvas for the mural. There is room right above it. You see the sort of rectangular square where we're considering just putting the name of the school up there. But for right now, the square is the main thing. And then the idea would be there is room to expand the mural to just the other side of the door for honoring things like mentors and stuff in the future. The process was pretty simple. Uli had an idea for, once we talked about doing a mural, he started sketching ideas out. He talked to all the students at MBA, getting their input. Then we set up an appointment with Chris Vandenhoevel to get approval for the location. We met with Isabel from Raices. The Raices Collective has helped with lots of mural projects in the past, especially at the school. So that was a natural fit for us. She really helped jumpstart the process for us. We found out right kind of near the end that we were not able to use their artists because they're booked, and so we were trying to get it done in time for Ulysses to graduate. So we had to pivot a little bit, but they were incredibly helpful at getting it off the ground. Then we got approval for the project funds, and I'll talk about costs in a minute. We submitted the proposal to you for board approval, and hopefully if it gets approved, we'll go buy supplies, the paint and stuff. We'll trace the mural on the wall, which Linus Lancaster, who's our art teacher, has promised to help us do. He's basically an expert at it, and then we'll get together and paint the mural. The painting will take place more than likely on a weekend or at least after school hours when it's kind of cleared, so we're not running into interrupting classes or distracting students or anything like that. Thank you, Karen. The costs, we have an open PO at Ace Hardware, so keep the money local, and we don't expect it to be more than $1,000. That was a number that Isabel from Raices kind of helped us estimate. So, and then the artist fees, which were going to be about $2,000, disappeared when Raices artists were not available to us. So what was nice is how we pivoted is Uli has artists in his family who have done commercial artwork before, and so they're too happy to support their family member. So we're kind of trying to figure out how we can get them paid a little something just for their efforts. But as all the POs have closed, it might not happen until next year. But in any case, they've jumped on board to help out with this. And that's pretty much it. Uli, do you want to talk through the drawing a little bit, and then we'll answer any questions? We'll turn it around when we're done. And so the idea is that this mural represents not just our school and our students and the program as exemplified by the mentors, but also the community that does such a fantastic job supporting us. He's almost finished. He's got to put the Marcy picture, but we've got an actual photo of her to, take from. So this is the almost finished rough draft. I think that's fair to say. And as you'll see real quickly, can you go back to the first slide real quickly? So thank you. So this was the original rough draft that he used, and then you can't quite see the top half, which is almost unchanged, right? So he's made a few changes, but pretty much stuck with the same concept. So that's our presentation. Do you have any questions? Really for Uli, not for me.
I do have a couple of questions. The top half, could you explain what that is? I mean, kind of help me understand the pieces, if you will.
And Uli, can I ask you to talk into the mic? The folks on Zoom can't hear.
And if you would just point to the part that...
Well, just go across the top. Start from the left side. You have a figure and then another.
So that represents an Aztec woman that was... She represents their lady. She represents Mother Earth.
I like it.
And then that circle you see is the Aztec sun calendar. It's going to represent a sun. And then on the opposite side, it's going to represent a moon. So you have kind of the same thing going on, the same concept. Oh, in the middle, it's going to represent who we're named after, Marcy Becerra. It's going to be a Native American lady. And on the right-hand side, it's going to be more of Native American tradition, like basket weaving, dream catchers, feathers, and also flowers.
We do a lot of Native American studies as part of big picture learning. Things. We've gone out to a tribal ceremonial ground at Susquel House, which is about an hour away in Napa County. We went down to the Finley Center and we observed a Native American art exhibit, and also Rose Hammock, who's a local pomo, was teaching all our kids how to weave baskets in the traditional pomo style. So there's a lot of Native American learning that goes on as part of our program, and so that's partly why we want to honor that.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Can you guys be sure to speak into the mic?
I'm not loud enough?
Well, no.
It's on Zoom.
It's on Zoom, so
yeah.
it's fine in this room, but yeah, broadcasting. You guys are, you're famous.
Well, Uli, your artwork is so beautiful. I just think this is such a fantastic project. I'm so excited for you guys to move forward with this and to see it finished, and it's just awesome.
Thank you.
I totally agree. I love it. I love it. My question is, are you going to need scaffolding, et cetera, to...
What was that?
Yeah, are you going to need scaffolding as you go up the wall? I mean, I don't want to... Hopefully, I don't see you one
probably a ladder.
Yeah,
But we have
should be
scaffolding
fine. We
with,
have supplies to get up there.
Yeah, it's not that high.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's less than 10 feet high from top to bottom. I realize 10 feet's a little high, but we're working with Dennis Vickery to help if we need any platforms to stand on. We're not just going to stand on a chair and hold each other up and balance several chairs.
Spinning office chair.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm looking at students.
Chris, bend over. I need to
I can
stand
do
on your back
anything,
a little
yeah.
bit. Can't reach the spot. So Dennis is going to make sure we're doing it safely.
Excellent. Thank you. This is great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Just real quick, I want to thank you both. This is what MBA is all about, one student at a time, helping you follow your passions, connecting you. There's budget here, there's math, there's connecting with all different kinds of professionals, coming here to interact with a board. This is exactly what we hope for in moving to the big picture learning model. So thank you, Yuli, for presenting not only your project, but kind of the wider idea of what we're trying to do at MBA. So thank you.
And what's great about it is it's driven by his passion, right? That's the huge component, is it's passion driven. To do all of that learning comes from his passion. So thank you very much for hearing us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
Really good job.
Thank you guys for your
want to
time.
make a final comment. At first, I just want to thank you for being here today. I know that it's school night, so you have school tomorrow too, but your picture, your skills, and your passion for what you just spoke about today, I think is something that we can take away. And every time that I go into Marcy Becerra, I'm inspired by the students. They all have individual passions. I'm just wondering, are any of your friends or any of the students in the classroom participating in the project?
Oh, yes, for sure. So before I started, in that first drawing right there, I had got input from every student. I had made a Google form and had asked everybody if they could please take the time out of the day to just make some suggestions, anything that they thought would be cool in a painting. So yeah, I actually did go around and ask, and I would bring it in every other day, and they would tell me oh, you should add this, or you should add this, and I would be oh, I like that, hell yeah.
And we've already had several MBA students say, yeah, we'll help you paint when the time comes. Talking with Lancaster, the tracing on the wall will happen at night because that's the best time to do it because you're projecting and tracing. I don't know if anybody besides Uli and the artists will do that, but when we actually start filling in the color and painting, several MBA students have said they'd like to help, and I know Mr. Lancaster said a few of his art students would be willing to help as well.
It's incredible. Thank you. Mom should be proud.
How long do you think the project's going to take once you start with the tracing?
So the tracing should take about a weekend or two,
Mm-hmm.
but finishing it up should probably take about 2 to 3 weeks.
So it's not it happens over the course of days. You do some hours and let it dry and...
Yeah, so we would have to wait until nighttime for night to fall. So we would get a projector,
Mhm.
get that image, and we would just project it on the wall.
Mhm.
And then we would trace it probably for like a couple hours because we're not going to be out there all night. And then we'll just let it dry out for a couple of days and just hit it again, just every other time we can.
When we spoke with, this was where Raices was so helpful. When we spoke with them, she said we could probably get it done in 6 to 8 hours. That was with 2 professional artists, Uli and some help. So we figure the actual painting time might double. So we hope to get it done in a weekend, right? That would be the hope. And hopefully the timeline for it is to get it done somewhere between May 15th and 20th as an ending date, right? In time, like I said, before he graduates.
And then like a unveiling, maybe party.
Aaron,
thing?
that's an Aaron question.
I think that would be super fun.
Yeah, you got it. Freddie knows I can't say no to him.
And like I know in the back of my mind that an unveiling in some sort of ceremony. In an ideal world, we'd get Marcy Becerra herself down there. She's had some health issues recently, so we've been working with her daughter Jennifer. So we'd have to coordinate and see if that's even possible. So that would be the ideal at an unveiling. But yeah, some sort of formal unveiling to get people who've contributed there, and that's really Aaron's much better at that than I am at this point in the game.
This is incredible.
Chris volunteered to cater, though.
Ulises, I hope that this is something that we can see in the news. You mentioned it. Marcy Becerra is Healdsburg Unified, so celebrating this with a press release and sharing your skills and your passion on the news is something that we can maybe push.
Yeah, we can help you with that.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, good job.
Yeah. Thank you
for having us.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you for that wonderful presentation. Beautiful, beautiful painting. So this is an action item. So we're going to take a vote on whether or not to approve this. We do need a motion.
I'll move.
And I'll second. All in favor? Aye. All right.
Uli, it passed. You're approved. There you go.
Of course. Can't wait to see it. All right, moving on to 11.2 student learning. Oh, so sorry.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. Very talented.
I'd just like to say thank you for taking the time out of you guys' day and hearing me out and hearing my project and appreciating it. Thank you guys. Have a great day.
Of course, you too. Get home safe. All right, now we have 11.2 student learning, the social emotional learning report card presented to us by Director of Student Services, Debbie.
Diane.
And oh my,
Whatever.
I'm so sorry.
I'll answer to anything. But I don't want Debbie's job. So I'm here to sort of give you a yearly update on school climate and our SEL report card. And you can go to the next slide. That's okay. And so just to set some context, I don't know, a couple of board members were there about 4 or 5 years ago when we had a workshop. And we thought, how are we going to manage the data? How are we going to know we're doing a good job? How are we going to address student concerns? And we decided to sort of put it into buckets according to the CASEL framework. So I'm kind of just pointing that out because you're going to see that referenced a lot during the slides because we're trying to stay within those 5 core competencies that you see up there in the center of the wheel. And we must have been doing something interesting because we were asked to present at the SCO Collaborative recently, and superintendents and directors all reached out to me and said, can you give me a copy of that thing that you're doing? Because that's really cool. And so I'm really proud of the work that we're doing, and I'm proud of the work that the principals are doing. So that's just, again, just sort of a metric for you. When they're green, okay, watch. We might have had a little bit of a shift, either a downward or upward shift, depends upon what data point we're looking at. And focus area would be highlighting areas that we're a little bit concerned about. I'm pleased to report I don't think we have any focus areas in our SEL report card. This time we have mostly green, just a few yellows, just a few dips here and there. And I can explain some of the bigger district-wide changes that we saw, but then the school sites can definitely talk to their individual data points. So this is the district as a whole. Again, those are the 5 CASEL competency areas up at the top. And you can see we don't have any areas in orange. When we first started this work, we had about 8 areas. We had about 5 of them in orange. And so, we had some real concerns. But I've got to say, over the last 4 years, we've seen a lot of growth. And some areas that can really, it just took a small turn, and so that's why they became watch areas. So this is a little bit of context about CellWeb. CellWeb is the social emotional learning screener that we use at K-5. And so that really does get to things like emotion recognition, self-control, those areas. It's not actually assessing your mental health. It's assessing or screening for the tools that you might need to make good choices, to be a good citizen. Do you understand your own emotions? Can you identify? Can you show empathy? That's a little bit of hyperbole for a kindergartner, but you know what I mean. Can you recognize another and how they're feeling? So we saw a little bit of a dip in emotion recognition, and I'm not exactly sure why. I'm going to let maybe Tiffany or Erica can kind of explain that. But it's comprised, self-awareness is comprised not only of it's comprised of many different questions. So it could have been one that maybe the kids didn't understand as well. Let's go on to co-vitality. Co-vitality gets into more of our mental health. So from that tool, we get some really excellent data that allows us to intervene pretty quickly on those that are experiencing high levels of anxiety, low levels of trust. The only small dip that we saw, and it's a small dip, is in optimism. So I'm sorry to say that our junior high through high school kids.
I just love that zest is one of the categories. And I think it's hilarious for some reason that it's up 1%.
Yes.
1% more zest this year.
But they're not optimistic.
Well, they're only a little tiny bit not optimistic, though.
Yeah, I know. I had to double check that figure, too. I'm like, is it 1%? No. Is it? No. So anyhow, but across the board, we saw improvements in all of those other areas. And so that's what we want to see. And then next slide. So this is new to you guys this year, but I thought that I'd put it in as my parting gift to you. But suspension rate, look at that, people. So more than half percent down than where we were this time last year. And we didn't have a lot of growth to do in the percent attendance, but we had a little bit of growth. I was just glad to see that it wasn't declining. So we like to see that. And then I thought the one thing that we don't really showcase, so I pulled out some areas related to the family survey that we give. I haven't shown you this before, and it's not really part of our bigger report card because we'd have so many data points in there that, it would be unwieldy. But you can see that even our families, outside of communication and feedback and school safety, which I'm sure you can appreciate with all of the local news and everything, why parents might be reporting overall concerns about school safety, have gone down a little bit. Communication and feedback, I dug a little bit into that one since that's popped up orange, so it would definitely be a focus area. And that gets to the questions of, do parents get enough information related to their child's progress? Do they get enough information related to how they could help them at home? Are they getting that level of communication, from the school side or classroom? And then I don't know if you have any questions for me right now. I can pop back up. And then I'm going to let the principals talk about each one of their sites and individually and the good work that they're doing there.
Diane, I'm
Yeah.
just for the junior high. I actually received the messages for the junior high, and there are a lot of communication happening. But I'm just wondering, is the 6% decrease at the junior high like specific to like a specific language, or is it like overall parents just feel?
I can get back to you on that because I think I might be able to break it down by those who identify as.
It just might be general, and parents might be feeling this.
I only
but just,
compared to it generally, and then I should mention too, we're still higher than Sonoma County. So, however, this is a dip for us, although we're still higher than Sonoma County. But it really boils down to two questions. I get enough information about my child's progress, and I get enough information of how I can help at home and things like that. So.
And are all the statistics that we're looking at just relative to last year's numbers in the same category, or is there more to the number than that?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
It's relative. These are compared to 2023, and it was roughly the same time. So January of 2023 compared to January of 2024. So families change too, as families come in and out. It's not a stagnant group.
And just to clarify, the family survey does not have open-ended questions. They're close.
So at the end, it has a lot that are very, statistically. Erin, help me out, doctoral candidate. It's just like establishes the statistically relevant.
Statistically significant.
Thank you. What she said, and then
how many people take it? Right, you have to have so many people out of your population to take it for it to be like, that's a good survey.
But also, anyhow, so they standardize the questions, of course, so we can compare across counties, county data. And so, I'm sorry, Crystal, did I lose track of your question?
Are they fill in the blanks? Is that what you're asking?
Are they fill in the blanks? Are they bubble in?
Yes.
On a scale from 1 to 5.
There's
they
both.
all matter. People
Yes.
answer them very differently and have,
It's a percent positive, so it's a Likert scale.
Okay.
And it goes 1 to 5, and then there are opportunities for them to give or just written feedback, comments. And so those comments are just a narrative, and everybody who has access to the surveys can see those comments.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to introduce Tiffany Dockery.
Thank you, Diane. And go ahead, Tiffany.
Thank you. Hello, board. Okay, if I could have you go ahead to the next slide. Alrighty. So as we take a look at HES's data, there's a few things to know. One is that all of our data on here comes from the SEL web administration. There are opportunities for the data in the other schools to come from feedback from Youth Truth that students take, but at HES campus, they don't have a Youth Truth for little people. So we just do our family survey and our staff survey. So the SEL web is given, we did it in late September and then in March. And so we can compare the beginning of the year to the end of the year. And we see a lot of growth in that comparison. So the same students at the beginning of the year taking it, then at the end of the year. And then you also can see, that's just from me personally, that's not up there, but you can see the 3-year cohort data. So looking at children who were in kindergarten in 2022, their end of year data compared to those same kids in second grade in 2024. So there's a lot of growth there. So like self-awareness or emotional recognition, they grew 13 percentage points and so on. All the way across there, it actually gets bigger and better the more you go across. And then the 2-year cohort data is the kiddos who were in kinder last year compared with those same kids in first grade now this year. So you can see a lot of great growth from where students start out to where they are now. And then there's some nice highlights there. And then we get down to the ongoing improvement area. And then that's the slide that Diane showed that had a little down 4 percentage points on emotional recognition. So this would be comparing students overall in kindergarten through third grade, because the elementary data includes third grade. And it's comparing those students from last year to totally different students this year. So while I do think it's important for us to recognize that there is that little dip there, those 4 percentage points, honestly, I look much more to the cohort data where you're comparing the same children and the growth that they make over time. So we certainly want to have, high, wonderful percentages across the board, and we want it always to go up. But sometimes kids score really high one year, and the next year a different group of kids score 4 points lower. So, yeah. If we could, do you have any questions about this slide before we go on to the next one? Okay, so this is that data. So it shows overall our comparison of spring 2023 to spring 2024. We did go up a couple of points in the overall. We went up a couple percentage points in social perspective taking, social problem solving, self-control. None of those are super hot, like they didn't go up 15 points or anything. You'll see a little bit of that in FMC's data, which I think that's statistically meaningful when it goes up that much from one year to the next. And then that little drop in emotion recognition from last year to this year. So it looks like last year it was 91%, which is incredibly high. So, no, this is different students. So this is correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Any questions about that one? Great. Okay. So what we're doing at HES, that I think this is the most important part. What are you going to do with that data? We are continuing to provide SEL lessons. It's a part of every single day in a TK through second grade campus. Every single day, and I would just about say most every single hour. It's not always a direct SEL lesson, but there's lots of SEL learning going on in terms of how we speak with one another, how we get the self-confidence to ask questions, how we organize our thoughts. All of those pieces are really things that we're working on in a very big way every day, every hour at HES. We have our counselor, which I cannot tell you how important he is. I wish I could just express that somehow, but maybe by saying it leaves me speechless that we have such a great counselor and that he makes such a great impact on students. We need him. I would like to have him full time. So if I arm wrestled with Erica over there, maybe, no, I don't think I could. But anyway, I would love to have a full-time counselor on site. I think parents would really like that. And you can see, I think, the data that Diane showed and the way that she talked about, going from all of these orange areas a few years ago, 5 years ago, to now we've got all these green areas and just a few yellow areas. That's the impact that having those mental health counselors on campus makes. And also having great SEL lessons and curriculum that teachers can use. So it all comes together, but that's an important role. We will use these data from all these assessments, including our Youth Truth family data and Youth Truth staff data, to guide instructional practices and things that we're doing on the school site. Like yesterday, my staff just met and talked about the staff data and talked about ways that we can make sure that certified staff and classified staff both are having a wonderful experience every day at work. So that was the way that we were using our data yesterday just with staff. We coordinate services. I know I'm kind of trying to get back to the kids, but we coordinate services where we're seeing problem areas in the data, and that, again, is throughout. Like last year we saw in our family data that families didn't think that we had great resources. Resources was really low area. It went up 20% this year in the family data, 20 percentage points. that's because we looked at it and said, well, that's an area we can do something about. Let's talk to families about what we have and what we do. Let's make sure that's part of what's in our newsletters. So it was just a simple change, but look at the impact it made. And engaging families to better understand these assessments. We tell them about them when they're happening. We haven't done as much as I think we could with explaining the data with parents and the action items that we're using. So I think that's kind of the next step. We've talked about it with Governance Council, but we haven't really talked about it with other family groups. So that's a next step for us. Any questions? Awesome. Oh, I love it. I'm going to turn it over to Principal McGuire.
What she said. Good evening again. We'll take a look at the first slide and some of our data, some of the highlights. So as was mentioned by Principal Doherty, that students at FMC both do the cell web twice a year, September and March, and then they also take the Youth Truth Survey. So we took that in January. So kind of just some highlights and then talk about some of the areas to continue to focus on. So we saw 91% of our third graders, scoring at or above on emotion recognition. That was actually an area of increase in the third grade cell web data. Social problem solving for fifth grade went up 30%. That was an area that needed to be focused on. And last year, our fifth grade team took a look at that data, the cell web data, and really focused on that. And we saw a great increase there. Teachers treating you with respect, 86% of our students. So I don't want to read all of this, but some of the highlights, and then also some of those areas that we need to improve. And we get to the action steps. I'll talk more about this, but I think one of the important things is to look at what students are saying and for teachers and staff to hear this feedback and to share it back with students. So I'll talk more about that. But, students, 6% decrease in teachers and students reporting that they have an adult to talk to if they're upset. That's something for us to look at and to think about, why they're responding that way. Some of the other decrease, that 20-year decrease over a 3-year period. Do you like going to school? I don't know, how much, COVID has to play in that, and students just kind of getting back in kind of this general, to be honest, level of apathy that I would never have used to describe third grade students, or fourth grade students or fifth grade, but in particular, it's our in third grade right now, just kind of this. But again, that's something for us to look at and to have conversations as a staff about. So here, again, our cell web data across the board, we saw increases in kind of all these areas, as you can see in the cell web side of things. So we're happy. Again, this is that kind of non-cohorted data. So it's comparing, spring of last year's students to spring of this year's students, but still to see those increases. And then the Youth Truth, kind of my teacher, those kind of stagnant numbers, I would say 1% decrease. I feel safe at school is pretty stagnant. I know we're not presenting on family data, but I will say yesterday I shared, as did Principal Doherty at my staff meeting, we talked about Youth Truth data and our family data. We had an increase. Last year we had 43 respondents. This year we had 100, just FMC alone family respondents. So, and we saw increase across the board. Student safety went up to like 81%, families responding that they feel like school is a safe place. So I was really happy with that. And last year, I had concerns about our family data, just the number of respondents and also some of those areas. So that was a real big kind of focus area just for me personally. And I was really happy with, again, the response rate, but also kind of we had increases across the board with how families felt about communication, resources, school safety, kind of all of those areas, which is not on the slide, but just plugging that in. So next slide. And a lot of the stuff that we do is the same that happens at HES in different ways. Obviously the SEL lessons, but focusing with the ruler curriculum. We have focus emotions that the classrooms and the teachers focus on every month. We also do a character trait of the month that classrooms have conversations about. So and find times in their community circles or in other ways to focus on SEL through the cost process and our amazing counselor. I'll also say our school psychologist, Leslie Charlesworth, who does counseling too, and just being part of that team and providing services to students who need them. So I'll go back to my staff meeting yesterday. One of the things that we've talked about that Youth Truth in particular talks about is sharing the data back with the respondent. So whoever that stakeholder group is, having them really know that you're looking at the data. So yesterday, as a staff, after I just shared parent and staff data, I gave access to the whole entire program of the student data to teachers, and they really dug into it. And what I asked them to do was take 2 pieces of data to share back with their class. One area of strength and one area that was a relative, weakness, or that students rated, not wanting to come, 20% of third graders, it wasn't that number, but I think actually in 5th grade, it was pretty low of students that want to come to school. So I asked teachers to go back and have a conversation with their class. And that was twofold, really, just to get their responses. Because sometimes on a survey, when it's, yes, sometimes no, that's what a lot of for our Youth Truth respondents for students, it's just a 3 scale. So, right, that's sometimes yes, no, so they had a bad day, did they, so having a conversation with our class, again, not to belittle the data, because it is how students are responding, so we want to take that seriously, but also for students to feel some agency, oh wow, you actually look at this random survey I take, and you read the comments, because I also gave all teachers access to the student comments where they talk about different instances of a kid being mean on the playground, or they say the food sucks, or just this range of comments. Pardon that, but just that's really the kind of that open-ended question. But I really wanted teachers to go back and have these conversations. So that's kind of our next step, kind of in engaging the staff and students in the conversations.
That seems really great to me and really useful, because I do think, they do quite often kind of go where does this information even go? Who cares who's paying attention to it? Yeah. And to circle back and kind of say we are paying attention. We want to know what you think and how you feel. And
right. And if 56% of you said you didn't feel like you had an adult on campus to talk to, let's talk about that. Do you feel comfortable let's identify who on campus, Miss Terry on the yard, what about her? Just to help them see. But again, just to know that we're looking at it.
I mean, that was the thing that stuck out to me, was that piece, that sort of the respect of your teacher, the fact that that's kind of stayed consistent, and 86% is a nice high number, but that's still a handful of students in every class who don't feel respected by their teacher for whatever reason. And I would be really interested to know what that is about. And, because that's to me a high bar. Although I do know that these things that, we played this game at our dinner table a few weeks ago that my kids made up, and my husband wouldn't give a 10 to anything. But I'm readily coming up with 100 tens, and I just think it's, everybody answers a little differently. But when you look at that kind of trust of adults, that feeling at school that there's someone that you can turn to and safe places to be and all that stuff, those are really, those numbers, we all want them to be 100.
Yes. Right. And I will say, because when you dig into it's an overwhelming amount of data, but when you dig into it, it only gives a yes. If they say yes, then they feel that way. Sometimes they don't end up in that 86%. So that also is interesting to look at, to say so we're really looking at the no, if again, you have to look at deep into the data, but to see what percentage of kids really do not have say no. Versus sometimes yes.
But as you looked at this data, was your sense that this seems right? Kind of gut feeling, yeah, this seems about right, or this is what I would have guessed. Or...
I think for the most part, yes. I think do kids like to go to school? I wish it wasn't in the 20 to 25% range for every grade level, but is the alternative at being at home on a device watching, Is that just where we are?
I mean, that's
You know,
been,
so.
I mean, that was the New York Times was writing about it last week, and just the apathy about school in general, and the feeling that post-COVID, we're still moving from, you know, something that's, we all took, school attendance was something that we all, and participation was something that everyone took for granted, to now just kind of having a different view of it based on what happened with COVID and distance learning. And I mean, I do think it's cultural. It's, you know, it's much
Sign of the
broader than
times,
our own community, right?
I love that the class conversations are happening. I think that was the recommendation from SCO when we attended the youth perspective session over at, well, it was in Windsor this year, in LC Allen 2 years ago. And I think that it was like our students seeing their own data in the classroom and talking about it, and how our other students maybe brainstorming solutions for some of this. So I love that there's conversations happening and are going to happen in the classroom. So thank you.
I also think that's the genesis for future student voice, which we all really want. You know, the idea that as the students mature and sort of that they are able to continue to speak up about the quality of their education, to make suggestions that are meaningful, to participate actively in what's going on in campus. And that can start when they see their thoughts mirrored back to them by their teachers, and, you know, their thoughts considered. So it's really cool. Thanks, Erica.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good to see you. Happy to report a 2% increase in optimism and zest at the junior high. Just want to point that out. Not quite sure what that means, but they're feeling optimistic, so that's good. Although still on watch. I know zest, I don't know. I guarantee if you asked our students what that meant in terms of their emotional help, they would be a little bit confused. But you see some highlights up there. There are some areas of watch. An interesting thing that I wanted to point out is under the relationship skills category, a 10% increase in peer support, which is still considered on watch. So kind of knowing where we're coming from and where we're going. And then with that, coupled with a different survey, a 4% decrease in overall relationships. So a little bit contradictory there. The co-vitality assessment or survey is one that the students take twice a year. So once in the fall and once in the spring. And then the youth truth is at the end of the year. So we recently took it, or right at the break right there. So overall, I'm happy to report for the majority some increases. It's hard to identify areas such as a decrease in gratitude, a 4% decrease in gratitude at the junior high level. You can guess as well as I could what they were grateful for. But I would say overall at school, we feel like students are grateful to have a place to come and feel safe. I always tell parents and families that the students that make the biggest stink about coming to school are my students that are on my campus till 7 and 8 o'clock at night when I'm still there, right? So they do feel safe being on that campus for the most part. And they, whether or not they report it or not, they're happy to be there. And I think that junior high is a really intermediate age. So they're kind of trying to fill out where they're going and where they're headed. But I did want to mention about the communication and feedback category that we talked about, which isn't on here. This is something that I talked to all of my parent and family groups about. My ELAC, my governance council, my PTO, and it's an overall sense of parents feeling like they don't know how to contribute at this level. In elementary, they are maybe in the classrooms more often. They're taking their student to and from school. Their student may be more willing to give them information after school about how the school day was. So it's a constant conversation about how we can support all of our families and constantly working to find ways that parents can be on campus and with students feeling comfortable with it. We always talk about, can I chaperone the dance? And I'm sorry to say, students really don't want their parents at the school dances, you know, in junior high. And so trying to come up with other alternative ways to make sure everyone feels included. I would also attribute it to now a student has 7 teachers. And so it's a lot different than one classroom teacher that you get a report from or a folder from every single Friday. So it's a big adjustment. And Erica and I at FMC have been working really hard to try to bridge the 5th and 6th grade gap this year. We've had our teacher teams visit each other at their sites and talk to students, and they met together to figure out what can the 5th grade team help support at the end of the year to piggyback on what the 6th grade team is going to start with when they come to the junior high. And then also I've created a parent presentation that I'm going to do at FMC in May for my rising 6th grade parents to give them a head start on what it's going to look like at the junior high, so they have the summer to digest and possibly ask questions. I think it's an overwhelming switch for parents and students, so that communication is way different. So just pointing that out about that. Okay, so this is kind of a different slide than the other 2 schools had. This is breaking down co-vitality, which puts students into different categories based on how they're doing overall at school. And so we have a high thriving and moderate thriving population. That's 36% of our students, up with a 2%. And then a getting by or languishing category, which is the majority of our students, with a 3% decrease. If you know junior high students, getting by is really a lot of times their overall affect. And so they're there, they're doing what they got to do, they're being responsible, they're being respectful, but they're there because they have to go to school a lot of times. So building in incentives to try to make them really enjoy the process is what we're working on really hard at the junior high right now. And then a 1% increase in high risk or inconsistent. So there's a variety of questions on the co-vitality where the student can report back and it will come up as like an inconsistent reading. So I've talked a lot with my staff about this test in particular too. It is quite wordy, and we wonder, especially our younger 6th grade students, how much they're understanding all the questions as well. So it's something that we do spend a lot of time diving into as a staff to make sure students are supported when they're taking the survey so they know what it's asking them. Because a 6th grade to an 8th grade student is much different skill set. Similar to what Erica was saying at FMC, the amount that enjoys school, 35%, down 4%. I think I don't really have much to say towards that. I think that if you were to walk on my campus on any given day, the majority of students look like they're enjoying it. I think the tasks that are mundane to them, the homework, the consistency, the requiring them to be their best self is difficult at this age. And so making sure that we have the resources put in place so that they feel supported with their mental and social emotional help, or health rather, so that they can access school. So accessing school is coming after we prioritize their mental and social emotional help at this time. And then again, a 1% decrease in feeling safe during school. And I honestly feel like this is attributed heavily to social media and what students see going out in the world and might read about happening in the community around them, or neighboring communities. When there's something happening at a school outside of our district, my students know about it before I do at lunchtime. And we have a no cell phone policy, so I'm not quite sure how they're getting there. But they are really in tune with what's happening around them. And so it is scary for a lot of them. And so that 1% doesn't surprise me at all, but happy that the majority are feeling safe at school. Okay, so some next items for next steps and some things that we're continually doing. So at the beginning of the school year, we build in a couple days we call HJH days. So building community, going over the rules, if you will, the parameters of the school, the systems during lunch and break time, how to find your classes. For our little guys, where you put your backpack when you come into 6th grade. So working really hard to make sure that the younger kids feel supported by the older kids, giving the older kids agency to help the younger kids. And this is something that we talk about a lot as a staff. We utilize our mental health counselors and academic counselor to their fullest extent. Without them on our campus, I think it would be really, really difficult to operate. Our school psychologist, Senia Horning, who's there often, our behavioralist, Miss Liz is our academic counselor, but she also I use her in a social emotional aspect to check in regularly with students. And then my support staff in terms of Mr. Mendoza, my bilingual student and family services coordinator, Miss Dina, we break up the duties when it comes to checking in with students for academic check-ins. Right now, we're making a point to talk to every single 8th grade student who is wavering a little bit on the end of the year requirements. So a constant team effort trying to make sure students feel supported academically, emotionally, And then also the bridge home to school. It's a little bit different in junior high where sometimes parents don't feel in the know because students aren't sharing with us or with them. So really our focus moving forward is to help bridge that gap between parents and family and school. So we've worked hard with all of our groups to figure out what's the best way to get a hold of you, what's your preferred method. And unfortunately, opposite of what Erica said, looking at our Youth Truth data today with my staff, our family responses went from about a 70% response rate on Youth Truth last year down to a 35% response rate this year. We attribute it to like no news is good news. Maybe everyone's happy, but it's what we talked about. But also getting parents to engage with us is really a big struggle. We're reaching out as much as possible, but finding the reciprocation has been difficult for sure. So that's definitely a big next step for us. And then we're continuing to try to spin the narrative and continue with positive reinforcement and incentives and giving students things to look forward to and earn rather than trying to flip towards punitive punishment if we can. One more thing that it's not up there, but what we do spend a lot of time is rebuilding student and staff relationships. We try really hard if there's a student-to-student disagreement or anything to get them together and try to get them to work it out. And we are a school of under 300 students, and we all have to be there and go to school. So how can we all work together and make it positive? So that's where we're at. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Nicole. I just want to emphasize that the opportunities for parents to participate have increased by about 1 billion% since you started your job there. So, I recognize that. And I think it really is like, you have built a lot already. And there's, I'm sure you have plans for more opportunities, but really there was very few opportunities before. And now there are more. And I really, as the mother of 2 8th graders, right? I'm all, but I really think this emphasis on bridging home to school and the way that you're emphasizing the transition from 5th to 6th grade and sort of like the change in culture for a student and a family when they make that transition. I think that's like, I don't know how else to say it, but like it's just barking up the right tree because I feel like there's a lot of, just in my own experience, there's a lot of room for growth, and I really think that that I can't imagine what exactly those improvements might look like, but I could totally imagine if they were improved, how much stability and just well-being it would give to peace of mind to parents and to students both, because I do think there's a little bit of jumping off the high dive a lot of jumping off the high dive into the deep end, and that's how you learn how to swim in junior high school. And part of that is the transition to having 7 teachers, and maybe in elementary school your teachers were all kind of rooting for you, and not that your teachers in junior high are also rooting for you, but they also have to teach you how to do it yourself. And that's a different conversation sometimes, and the organization and all the administration that it requires, plus all of the social stuff that intensifies, exponentially when you get there. So I really think that those 2 pieces, I'm really happy to hear you gratified to hear that those are places to focus.
Thank you.
And I guess I'm always interested in what resources, it sounds like the resources since COVID in terms of mental health support have been really significant, but it's interesting to hear it come up kind of from every principal about how important it is. And I guess I'm just curious if there's greater need, or if, no one's going to say it's sufficient, right? No one's going to say that. Okay. Thank you.
And I would support, it's difficult to stand and say, well, there's this and this, and we're doing well, but we need to improve on this. And I have to smile as I was watching you. It's like, yeah, it's junior high. It's any given day, But there's something I want to say, but I won't because it's too long. But I also think, I was thinking on the communication part, if I'm a parent, it's like, this is a distinguished school. Why do I need to talk to them? I'm serious. It's like, yeah, I mean, think about that. It's like, hey, they're doing their job, so hooray for you. I mean that sincerely. I'm not sure that's the answer, but obviously we want more of their involvement, more of them asking questions, and helping them to figure out their kids, which I know is impossible. But thank you.
You're welcome. I think the majority of it, to be honest, is a logistical nightmare for families. I think it goes from 1 to 2 teachers to 7. Now they have A, B, C, D, E grades, A, B, C, D, F grades. They have an Aries portal where they can look at their students' assignments every night. They're not sure which teacher teaches what, and it's all very overwhelming for all families, naturally so. So I think our 7th grade parents are getting the hang of it, and they're getting the swing of things. I think 6th grade parents feel like they're in the deep end for sure. So trying to get ahead of it and kind of teach them and give them resources and obviously an open line of communication and letting them feel comfortable to come to us and helping us, and we can help them navigate it because it's a logistical nightmare for a parent going from elementary.
I mean, we also have Google Classrooms, and some of us get Google Classroom updates on our students, and then sometimes teachers update things very timely, and sometimes they don't update timely, and then I'll just say that it might be possible that our students aren't being completely honest with us about the things that are going on with their schoolwork, and they have the opportunity because the system is such a labyrinth to kind of, and so it is hard. And a lot of times you don't know your kid's teacher at all because you don't drop them off and pick them up, and they reach out when there's a problem, and so it's tricky.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nicole.
Thank you, Nicole.
Good evening. All right, so this is our first slide. As you can see, we're in the green, which is a big nod to really all the staff, all the teachers, support staff, paraprofessionals, you name it, custodians, everybody. The night crew who makes the high school run every single day and get it ready for the next week after week. So big nod to them because it really is a team effort. It takes everybody to come together and have great interactions with students, families, community members every single day. So those matter all the time. I'm happy to see that we are trending in the right direction. We are still looking at, where are we decreasing? Why are we decreasing there? Who is this working for? Who is it not working for? And then why? And then lastly, what are we going to do about it with this piece of information that we have here? As far as youth truth, I feel like we scored fairly well in many areas. Co-vitality, if you go to the next slide. We're also trending in the right direction here, I believe. So for high thriving, moderate, increase of 10%, getting by, decrease of 5%, and then highest risk and consistent, decrease of 5%. So again, I feel like those numbers are going in the right direction where we want them to. We still want to improve them and continue to move those markers. As far as enjoying school, there's a 1% increase. And people feeling safe during school, a 6% increase. That still means there's others that don't feel that way. So we want to make, our job is to find out what's happening with that group or that population, and what are some action steps that we can set in place to make sure and address those so that we continue this trend in the right direction. I'm pretty competitive, and I want us to be in the 90s and 100s as well. So looking at this data and letting our staff know that this does matter, this is important, and educating everybody on how often this is given, when it's given, and making sure that those messages are delivered in the right way, in the right tone, so that students aren't feeling like, oh, this is just that one survey that we have to take again, and talking about the importance of it. Yes, you're right. Click, 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 done. So my job is to make sure that I dig through this data, sift through it with our teams, and really pick through it, and again, find out who this is working for, who it's not, and then taking action. So some of the things that we're going to be continuing to do, and also next steps, as you can see up here, we're going to continue to support programs such as FFA, athletics, physical education, clubs, the arts, music, Skills USA, CTE, you name it. really anything that students come into contact with before school, after school, that's additional to their typical, 1 through 7 schedule is really, really important. And the amount of teachers at HHS that are involved in these programs is many. And they do it because they love it. Their heart's in it. We have teachers who coach, after school, a few seasons or 1 season, but those interactions matter because they get to make connections with our students outside of the classroom. And so that builds the relationship. And when they see them in the classroom, it's a lot easier to get them to move forward or pay attention or engage. Continue embedded in-class SEL practices and community building activities. Many of our teachers do this naturally. They take the time to connect with the students before they start their lessons, even if it's a quick check-in of, hey, how are we doing on a scale, 1 to 10, or give me a thumbs up. We have a teacher who plays music that's selected from students saying, these are my favorite songs at the beginning of the year, and so he'll play the music as they're walking in, and that's sort of a soft start to get them going. And then when it's time to go, he's ready to go, and they all respect that teacher greatly. Attendance reward system for perfect attendance, that's something that we've done this year. It's new, and so we're going to continue that, rewarding students who are doing their job. Continue planning activities for student engagement, such as 2 food court days on campus. We had these this year, and they were a great success. Many students came out and purchased different types of foods. The clubs were able to support and promote their work, which was great to see on campus. The creation of the Wellness Center. As you all know, we have a wellness center on campus, and Kim Harris is basically running that thing with some other staff members, but it's made a big difference. Staff members today in our staff meeting commented that it's really a good place to be. It's not like it used to be, where sort of like a quiet room, but it actually has a purpose and meaning, and it's being used in the right way. And that took a lot of work of visiting other wellness centers and seeing what they were like, and then coming back with that vision and implementing those strategies. So tons of work behind the scenes. Happy to have that on campus. We did a field day this year. As you know, we're under construction, and we couldn't get on campus until pretty soon to the start. So ideally, it's nice to have sort of a welcome back registration day, and you pick up T-shirts, you pick up your ASB card, you pick up your schedule, you take your picture, all that. None of that could have happened. None of that happened this year before school because of the construction. So we were thinking, let's do a field day to make sure that we could sort of do a introduction to high school for everybody, even our other students. But it was much needed, and it was a great day to not jump right into the curriculum and teaching, and just take a little bit of a break and help our students understand what HHS is all about. Something new this year as well, promoting the library to many students. We have many arts and crafts in the library now, which is really inviting, because if you walk in, you have the opportunity to actually play with certain things and feel a part of that library. It's not just a space with books. It's a lot more than that, and many students are using those. And our librarians are even they're using like counters to see how many kids are coming in. So they're really, really into it, and it's working. Lots of students are coming in. But even small things, like we open the cafeteria in the mornings for students who are coming in that show up early, because we want to make sure that there's a warm place for them before school starts. And to me, that makes a big difference. To me, that says you're welcome. We want you here. Here's a safe space that's supervised by somebody. Come on in. And I think it also sends a message to parents that we're ready for the students, even if the bell hasn't rung yet. And then continuing to use the use of the early warning system that Mr. John Camera created. We're all very thankful for that. Very, very robust system, and it's something we look at all of the time. We're doing some work with our MTSS team that we have at the high school, and we are using that thing like crazy, and it's pointing us in the right direction as to where we need to be focusing on. And then we pair that with our youth truth data, our co-vitality data. And so we're digging deeper into who are the groups that this is probably not working for, and then coming up with strategies. Within that MTSS work, we're doing interviews with students that we've identified that, maybe the system's not working for them, and they're giving us their feedback in interviews. And then we're going to bring that back to the team and share it, and then the next step would be to observe some of these students in their classes and then come up with a good system, good action steps to support these students who historically haven't performed well for one reason or another. But I just want to thank all the teachers and support staff, really everybody, because every interaction matters at the high school and really at any school. Every single contact that happens on a daily basis is really, really important. So I like to say you want to give them the ballpark experience. I don't know if you've ever been to a Giants game, but from the moment you walk in, you scan your ticket, you go to your section, everything's done professionally. So I want us to continue something like that and greet every student, every family, every single time, with respect and welcome them at the high school.
I want to just add, he showed the data point, 66% of students feel safe at school, self-reported. And when you look at that, you're like, why aren't there more? But it's actually top 2 in Sonoma County. I actually was talking with a representative from SCO earlier this week, and I haven't even told you this yet, they want to come and interview a group of 20 students or so to start looking for indicators as to why they feel safe. What are the programs? What are the things that make a difference so that they can then use that in other high schools as recommendations? So kudos to you and to the staff for making this school a safe place.
Yeah, and I just want to thank our supervision team, Mike Edwards, Greg Steele, Jody Pruitt in the office, Lucy Mendiola in the office, Sit Lally, and the attendance office, basically everybody who has a radio. And our thing is, because they're the first to know, and they will tell you, a break and lunch, before school, after school, be out and about, be visible, be the kids to the areas where they're going to be going. And that's a PBIS strategy. Once you see what are your kind of hot areas, if you have a lot of incidents happening in the 20s hallway, the 40s hallway, then you take your team, you educate them on that, and you say, okay, we're going to prevent this by being in those areas ahead of these incidents. So really, it's a lot of preventative work and just being out there before the bell rings, beat them to the cafeteria lines, open the doors. And so as soon as they see you, they think twice about, okay, we probably shouldn't do anything. And we're not perfect, but we want to continue to try to increase and do better, really. So whoever's number one, we need to find out because we want to take that spot.
Awesome. Thank you.
I also feel, and I want to acknowledge, Francisco, that students in the past, when they were presenting to us, mentioned that their interaction with you was something that they really enjoyed, and their interaction with just adults in the hallways was something that they really they felt seen by the adults in the school. So kudos to you and to the whole team, to all of the teachers, all of the staff, like you mentioned. We interact with everyone from the cleaning folks who are cleaning the office, who we are asking as students sometimes to open the classroom because we forgot our computer or whatever that is, right? So thank you for sharing all of this with us today.
Of course, yeah, that team's important too. Everybody really, it's as soon as you come across somebody, you drop everything and you just treat them as important people, and they're going to turn around and take care of your school. When you do that, because they're going to remember that you care about them, and they're going to try that much harder to make sure things go well for you in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, moving on to 11.2C, HOSD Local Control and Accountability Plan, aka the LCAP. Thank you, Erin.
Yeah. Thank you, Diane and principals. That was a really good lead-in to talking about our strategic planning process. So tonight is to provide some information, but really open the floor for you all to provide input, information that you feel strongly about that needs to be in the LCAP. So we can go to the next slide. Just a reminder, and for those who are listening or in the audience, Local Control Accountability Plan is a report that every public school district develops, serves 3 distinct but related functions. We're heavy right now in this educational partner engagement. Principal, Superintendent Vandenhovel and I are out at least once or twice a week in various committee meetings, governance councils, faculty meetings, ELACs, you name it, trying to share, the plan, but also spend plenty of good time to get input from our stakeholders. In every other sector, this would be called a strategic plan. So you can think of the LCAP as our strategic plan. We are currently this school year in year 3 of 3. So what we're writing right now is year 1 of 3. And so it's a good time to take stock and, make changes of where we think we're going to be in the next 3 years. It also serves as an accountability and compliance document for both state and federal funding, reporting requirements for data and whatnot. So next slide. The timeline, we're right there in the middle, March through May. This is when we gain educational partner input, going to meetings, sharing information. And then in May is really when the long nights start to happen for me and the business office to get the thing written. And then we'll come in June in the 2 meetings to provide a series of documents, the budget overview, the LCAP itself, the federal addendum, and now you may remember that local indicator where we rate ourselves on our facilities and instructional materials. It's a self-rating process that now thankfully is riding with the LCAP in the same calendar. Next slide. So this is the condensed version. You have in the packet a much more robust version of this, and then some description we'll go through here. So our 3 main goals of rigor, relevance, and relationships remain unchanged. We really didn't even feel the need to wordsmith those goals. And that feels good, right? That feels like we're sticking to a plan, right? Nobody likes lots of big change, especially in education as you move the Titanic. So we also have been told from educational partners, to the California Department of Ed, less is more, right? This document is supposed to be a public document that most people could pick up and read and understand what the priorities of the district are. And when we first started this, the first time I wrote an LCAP 9 years ago, we had, I need to look it up. It was 7 or 9 goals, and each of those goals had 10 to 12 actions. It was completely overwhelming. I always joke, I think me and Debbie and a couple other people are the only folks that read it cover to cover. And so we're really trying to be targeted and refined in our goals and our actions. And so we're going to go through this in the next slide and kind of highlight the changes. Hopefully don't get lost in this. So this is our current actions. So we had 7 in the rigor. And in terms of trying to get it to be more targeted, we're down to 4. So you can see some of our most important initiatives are being gathered into 1.1. So implementation of the standards and frameworks, and making sure that that's done through the PLC work that our principals talked about a little bit, where we're identifying essential standards. And eventually, over the next 3 years, we'll be working on common formative assessments and using that as part of our early warning system. So we also consolidated what was 1.4 into now 1.2, which is the multi-tiered systems of support, making sure that that's highlighted. And later in this presentation, you'll see that going all in on the MTSS framework in order to provide that differentiated services and catching all kids, right? Principals talked about preventative. And we want to make sure that through the early warning system that we're finding kids before it's too late. And so we feel strongly that the MTSS framework will help us. And then, kindergarten prep, TK, and preschool is the person who was talking about the developer fees. We're right on the verge. We're at 21 TKs right now. And we have a very robust kindergarten enrollment happening. So we see an increase in enrollment in our younger years, which is younger grades, which is really nice to see. And, maybe a possibility that we have more than 1 TK class here before we know it. And then the last action that is in the previous slide. Can we go back one more slide just to remind us where we're at? So 1.4, this is a learning environment's a tough one because we want to make sure that we have clean and well-maintained learning environment, that it's modern, that there are windows, there's good lighting, that there's storage. And it's a tough one, where do you put it? And so the learning environment is now under rigor with this idea that, if it's not a clean, well-maintained place, that it's going to be a more difficult place to learn in. So we can go to the next slide. Goal 2, relevance, 3 big actions now that have been condensed. So college and career readiness was 2.2. We're elevating that and, provide and improve the use of technology and PD. It's embedded in everything we do, right? After COVID and everybody's one-to-one, we've got, robust instructional technology. It doesn't mean we're abandoning it. It's that it's baked into everything we do at a level now, and it almost goes without saying. Active learning, as you saw from Marcy Becerra to the 6th grade or 5th grade science camp, making sure that our students have ability to do project-based learning, robust electives, CTE, and then changing the language of now 2.3 is used to say bilingualism for all, and now we're using the more honoring all students and a kind of a more inclusive. Thank you. You saw me stumbling. Is using multilingualism for all. And we can go to the next slide. Just running through this, trying to make it a little quicker. 3.1, we had students and family, you'll see there. 3.1 was family and 3.2 was about students. And it made sense to combine those, right? Students, family, and community engagement as an action. And making sure that we're thinking about all 3 holistically and that interplay and that they're not separated. Along with that goes obviously prioritizing equity. And so that is in the more robust language, not losing our focus on equity. And then 3.2, which you heard a lot about tonight from the principals, is school climate. And if kids don't feel safe and cared for, then kind of what's the point? So 3.2, school climate. I presented on the dashboard data in the mid-year update, so I don't want to belabor this, but this is important to kind of revisit. In terms of compliance and accountability, all districts that have any red must address those red areas in their LCAP, right? We have to speak to these items in the LCAP and make sure that we are paying attention to any areas that are in red. We've talked at length over the last couple of years about chronic absenteeism and how it's skyrocketed across the country and in California. Our numbers are not out of the norm. Most districts are seeing some red here in chronic absenteeism, but you're also hearing from the principals about, communicating, have no tardy parties, what they're doing at the high school in terms of announcing names and doing a raffle. So really leaning in. Principal Doherty provides her staff every week, right? What their attendance is? Every month, what the attendance are, so the teachers are seeing. We saw a nice increase in TK. The kids are finally getting some, getting over the germs and being able to fight them, right? TK is where we see our highest absences in the district. And part of it's just they're little and they're getting used to being in school. So you'll see this highlighted in our actions. One thing I want to say about the suspension rate in Marcy Becerra Academy, it's a very small student population, right? Less than 40 students. And we had 2 incidents at the end of last school year that popped that number up. But we are eligible and applied for some grant funding. And so as part of that being in the red, we're having a little windfall. We have a 1-year grant. And we're using that money to hire a student and family services coordinator just for MBA. So we've had Cristo at the middle school, and that position has done great things. You saw SB Nunez here tonight, who's a parent outreach coordinator. And she's been helping with MBA, but it's not enough. And the idea of the family and student services coordinator blends the students and the families a little bit more. And so it's being active in the classrooms, providing community circles, maybe pulling kids out to do some counseling, and also doing home visits. So we're excited we'll be adding that position to MBA with this 1 year of funds that comes from MBA being in the red. To talk a little bit about the English language arts and mathematics. So that data is about CASP. That's where that data point is. That comes from CASP. The one I want to highlight around HJH and English learners, it's always a funny metric to me, and I talk to other folks who do my job, and often we scratch our heads about this one. If students are meeting standard on the CASP, they get RFEP'd. And so the data pool here are English learners who are still learning English. These are our 30 or so kids at the junior high who are English learners. The minute they get halfway into standard met, they RFEP. So it's a weird metric to hold English learners accountable to meeting standard on the CASP when they're still mastering academic English, right? So it's a delicate data point that takes, you've got to look at each kid and make sure they're growing, right? It can't just be, oh, they didn't do well on the CASP, but where are they going from year to year? Students with disabilities, and Diane and I have been talking about this till we're blue in the face. It's similar to chronic absenteeism. It's a tough nugget to crack to get students with disabilities meeting or exceeding standard on the CASP. It doesn't mean that it's not something we strive for, but it's, again, a very small population. We have under 200 students who are students with disabilities with wide-ranging disabilities. And so again, looking at students individually, working on co-teaching, we have more robust curriculum coming in. We're looking at some different ways we use some of the instructional time. And I don't want to say it's a nut that can't be cracked, but it's a consistent problem that a lot of people are working on, and we're not alone in this. So we can go to the next slide. So this is the good news, right? Thankfully, our district only has to write about a few things in terms of red. We've got lots of green and lots of blue to celebrate. So I just wanted to remind us, again, we went over this at length in the mid-year update, but wanted to remind of the successes that we're seeing, of where we're in green and blue. We can go to the next slide. This is where we've seen significant improvement, and in just a minute we'll see kind of why HJH became a distinguished school. So knocking it out of the park in mathematics at HES and HJH, seeing nice rises there. We did see at HES an increase in English language arts and students with disabilities, right? So we're figuring some things out with our youngest kids in terms of students with disabilities, and we hope to continue that trend into the junior high and high school. Diane had mentioned about our decreasing of suspension rate. So that's some good news there about improving. Next slide. So the distinguished school, middle and junior high schools were eligible to be named as distinguished schools this year. And so HJH saw, a nice drop, 3% in suspension rate from last year, from the 2 years ago, and then extraordinary growth in mathematics for all students, low income and Hispanic students. And that is what has earned that school as a distinguished school. Elementary schools were not evaluated by the CDE. It's every other year, right? Elementary schools will get looked at next year. It looks to me and another person that I work with data on and consult with that had elementary schools been looked at this year, that HES, both can't break HES FMC because it's largely FMC data because it's CASP and our little guys don't take CASP, that HES would have likely been also named a distinguished school. So they'll get their chance. Yeah, it's just kind of bad timing. So I just wanted to say, we're seeing nice growth at both elementary and the junior high. Next slide. So quickly, just to kind of wrap this up, the LCAP ends up being an over 100-page document to highlight, what are we doing about those things in red? And I'll say my answer is multi-tiered systems of support. We're putting a lot of eggs in that basket. And so you'll see a fair amount of time and resources, not a fair amount, a lot of time and resources being devoted to getting better at MTSS. And so, laundry list of things there. I'm happy to describe any of those at another time. But we've got a lot going on. I want to drop us to the 2 bullets under academic support and continuous improvement in the English language development program. We're looking at new curriculum for the high school right now. So there's been some new stuff released that Dr. Dennis Perez is looking at, continue with professional development and a focus on newcomers. In my time in Healdsburg, we'd have 3, maybe 5 newcomers across the entire district, year after year after year, spread throughout the grades, 3 to 5 max. We're pressing on about 40 in the district right now. We have 15 at the high school, 12 at the junior high. So we are seeing, as our other communities in the region, an unprecedented number of newcomers, and we are scrambling, honestly, to serve them correctly. And so I think we put some good things in. We've got a math newcomers course. We added a section at the junior high for newcomers in English. We've got a bilingual instructional assistant at the high school. But it's something that we are learning about and leaning into and trying to get better. And I know it's a topic of conversation amongst our staff. When I go to the faculty meetings and governance council, it comes up every time. And I just want to acknowledge to you as a board and to our faculty and other staff members that we are working hard and being very thoughtful about how we can better support our newcomers in terms of both academics and other wraparound supports. The other thing is academic workshop. I had mentioned in a previous meeting that we are doing away with math support for IM1 and repositioning ourselves to academic workshop. We have 2 sections in the master schedule at the high school, one being taught by an English teacher and one being taught by a math teacher. So we're taking a new tactic in terms of tier 2 support, tier 2 being, kind of that next level, not necessarily what every kid gets. And then we've also added 2 additional intervention sections at the junior high. We've long had math support, even before my time in the district, so well over 10 years, but we've never had reading support at the middle school. And so we're adding 2 sections of reading support for students who don't have disabilities to the junior high. And so that's really come out of using the early warning system. So the other 2 things, social, emotional, and behavior support, I think the principals did a wonderful job of leaning into that and providing quite a bit of detail. So that is all I have for the presentation. So I want to open it up for you all to provide some thoughts and some input on where you're interested.
But before we do questions or input from the board, we need to, we have a public comment.
Oh, great.
Yeah, Robin Doherty, sorry. Yeah. Well, you knew you were coming. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to be quick. So who reads the LCAP cover to cover? Stephanie Fife and I do. So there's a couple more. Hada met recently, Monday, with Superintendent Vanden Heuvel, and we met at the table to talk about the LCAP. He gave us a nice copy of the full detail of the LCAP, and he gave us time to look at it. So we were able to go to the table, ask questions. We talked about some information on there that possibly needed to be deleted. And then we talked about some information that needed to be added to the LCAP. And this is the first time at the table that HADA has had the teachers discussing the LCAP. And we would like to continue this because I know I've asked you time and time again to meet at the table. So I would like to say thank you for letting us come to the table to talk about this.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you. Any questions for Erin?
Yeah, or input, ideas, direction.
This is like super high level board side stuff, but I really feel like the revisions from the previous document are really reflect to me the things that we've talked about and the changes that have gone on since the last kind of,
major
reimagining reiteration. And that's really cool. I mean, I feel like there's a lot that's articulated here that is, very appropriate to kind of what we've talked about and the evolution over the last few years. So that's really cool. Thank you.
I will go. I agree with Rose. I see that goal 3 relationship was kind of combined, so now you just have like 2 main focuses. For the improvement of school safety and climate, we heard from our administrators today about some of the proactive steps that they're taking at their sites to increase school safety and climate in the school. And I'm wondering if it'd be an appropriate time to look at a reform or some sort of way to address some of the behavioral, problems that we call problems with the students. Ms. Odetto mentioned the proactive steps that they're taking at their site to talk and relationship, amend relationship with students and teachers. And so,
more restorative practices.
Yeah, more restorative practices. We also saw the increase in suspension rates that was also highlighted by all the administrators, by you, Erin. So I'm wondering if under the 3.2 goal, we can include some sort of observation, reform, discussion around what we're doing with behavior, given not only the conversations that we're having inside of our school and our local community, but also what we're seeing across the board in Sonoma County.
Yeah, suspensions were down 60%, right?
Yeah, which is incredible.
Right.
But looking at that, there's proactive steps that we have taken, right?
Yeah.
To make that happen. And when I say we, I mean them, right? Not me at all. But, how do we put that on paper so that it lives there? And,
Got it.
Yeah. I don't want to say, but this shouldn't happen, but our administrators all leave and someone else comes in and they have this guiding paper, this strategic plan, right, that they can implement.
There's this thing we're doing called MTSS that will actually memorialize all of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it will institutionalize the steps we take in specific instances around that. So it's perfect timing because you plugged the other goal. So
and I'll say part of the early warning system, it's not just academic. And so we've been working really hard to clean up our data, and the principal's working very closely with Diane just quickly, because I do think it's important, making sure that we've got clean referral about office referrals, right? What's classroom managed and what gets sent to the office and why, and making sure that there's a clear understanding with all members of the building of what gets handled in the classroom and what needs to get handled in the office, and providing teachers tools, support, strategies so they don't feel overwhelmed in the classroom, and then tracking that data of who's coming up to the office, when are they coming up. So we've changed all of our forms. It's all going into Aries now, so we can track when does it happen, where does it happen, which kids, which teachers. And that's all in the early warning system, and now also on a cadence of looking at that data. So it's not just when a kid gets sent up, but we'll be looking at that discipline data. I think it's quarterly in order to be a little more proactive. And then Diane's working to write, what would you call it, Diane? The behavior plan? There you go. Discipline guide.
It's really decision rules around discipline. Yeah. So that is another one of Diane's parting gifts, right, Diane?
Yeah.
I just wonder if, just to build a little bit on what you said, and please correct me if that more the idea is that we're talking about high level stated goals, and that to say that we're implementing MTSS sounds like inside baseball and the stated goal from
you could state it more clearly in that goal.
Yeah. And that the stated goal, that MTSS is actually like an implementation plan and methodology. And if we're talking about that, our stated goal should be that restorative practices. And I mean, I almost feel like, to me, it's always a little bit of kind of high expectations of student behavior, and consistency in dealing with all student behavior, which of course, like, then we're getting into the details of it, but that the district stated goal would be around restorative practices, or
it's really supports for the high expectations so that we
There you
enable
go.
them to do it. But we can work on making sure that's represented better in the language. Yeah.
Thank you.
Because I think that is reflective of what, what the investment in MTSS is, but it just sounds like
the detail for school
when
climate.
you just take the first letter at the beginning. I always forget what that's called.
Multi-tiered systems.
The thing where acronyms.
Oh, yeah.
The acronyms can be like make your brain go.
We're
like,
acronym experts. Yeah.
Yeah. And school climate reads, improve school safety and climate by supporting social, emotional learning and mental health through positive behavior practices and counseling. And what I'm hearing you say is not only positive behavior practices and counseling, but to be a little more explicit about that, including restorative practices. And that had been in the language at one time. And it's like, the less is more, but what I'm hearing from you is that word restorative is important.
Well, and I like what Chris said too about supports, and I feel like actually that dovetails in with what all of the principals talked about tonight. This idea of the district proactively putting resources into daily student support, and then student support across the academic year and the years.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And actually, I thought of something else while we were just talking, which is that I wonder if, can you go back to the first slide where under rigor? Thank you so much, Karen. Thank you. I was just thinking about college and career readiness. Is that on?
That's on relevance, but yeah.
Yeah, and it might be like in your packet, if you go through the slides, there's the handout that has the thicker descriptions. So college and career readiness says continue to provide opportunities for students to explore their interests and improve college and career readiness. So these are like the big headings, and then there's sentences that end up in the full
narrative. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was more just I guess just kind of my perception of your summary of it. I just wonder if there's something about it that is a little bit weighted towards secondary when we talk about college and career readiness. And I was also like confusing it with being under rigor, which I know is separate, but it's this idea that we're discussing it from the standpoint of a student that is like finishing their education at HUSD. And I wonder if a better way to articulate it has to do more with continued growth. So any student is experiencing that, yes, a movement towards college and career readiness, but also like a preparation for appropriate, I don't know, maybe I'm
progression. Yeah,
maybe
that's
I'm
how it's
like,
intended and how we think of it, because we're really looking at it from an outcome base, right? We're TK-12 and the outcome is that they leave college and career ready, but we can maybe work on language to make
that's
it
kind of why it
more
occurred to
reflective.
me, because this idea that like that we're talking about something when it's all said and done, yes, you want it to be college and career readiness, but you also want it to be like kind of preparation for daily life at each stage, and that, and that is a slightly different take. And I guess so since we were parsing about how to,
Yeah, it's a good idea. And, where you get into the detail, to Robin's point about reading So then what we do is we have to line up every budget item, basically every big ticket item into these categories. So, right, that's where you then see how are we making good on our promise in terms of spending our dollars in that way, right? So I'll tell you, we have conversations about just our enrichment program fall into college and career readiness or active learning, right? And there's some times where it hits both, but
Right.
I think that's where you kind of get into the true level of detail of like, what are we talking about? And that's how we spend our money, right? Where are putting our resources?
Yeah, I guess that's why I'm focusing on it a little bit in this discussion, because I think, the flavor of the way that the categories are put together does have this direct effect on budget decisions and kind of like the stated goals and then the actual, dollar money we spent on goals.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know, I feel like I admire you for putting this document together every year, because this is my 4th year on the board, and it's the first time that I feel like I actually kind of understand what I'm looking at. So maybe that's why I'm saying more than I ever have before.
Yeah. And I'm happy, this isn't the only time, right? There's been other times where board members have wanted to dig into this a little bit more, and my office is always open, email to continue the conversation.
Thank you, Erin. All right. Any more questions, comments? No? Okay. So moving on to 11.2D, California Day of Teacher, presented to us by Mr. Ben.
Yeah, so this is yearly we get to proclaim the Day of the Teacher and then the week of Classified. I don't know why Classified gets a week and teachers get a day, but it's the way California does it, and it certainly is not a reflection on importance. So I'm here today just to publicly thank the incredible teaching staff that we have in our schools. Both as an educator and as a parent, I'm super grateful for everything that they do on a daily basis for our kids. And I'd like to read some highlights from the resolution. It hasn't changed actually in the last few years, but it's worth reading. So, whereas California teachers are proven leaders in bringing inventive practices and creativity into the classrooms, and they produce the scientists, the inventors, the technicians, and engineers that have led our state to become the 8th largest economy in the world, and have many extraordinary skills that they pull from to reach and teach students, fill many roles as listeners, explorers, role models, motivators, and mentors, work to open students' minds, ideas, knowledge, and dreams, have protected and even given their lives for their students. California teachers advocated for and currently provide the public education all students deserve. We do take every student who comes to us. And they continue to influence they influence us all long after our school days are only memories. So we owe much of our success and our students' success and our own personal success directly to the teachers of California. So we would be resolving to recognize May 8th as California Day of the Teacher in our district. So this would be a resolution, so it's a roll call vote.
All right.
I'll move.
I'll second.
All in favor? Oh, my bad.
Vice President Lopez Jimenez.
Aye.
Trustee Potmissel.
Aye.
Trustee McAllister.
Aye.
Trustee Lopez Pardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right.
And next up is our classified employees. And again, no order of importance. They are equally important and do a fantastic job with our kids. These are the first people they see when they get on the bus each day, and often the last they see in the hallway as they're leaving after practice. And so classified employees are often behind the scenes, not always visible to us or to the students. They were the ones who kept us safe during COVID by cleaning our classrooms so diligently, and first back into the school, actually. So this is a resolution to recognize them with a week. This is how we do it in California, once again. But again, I'll paraphrase. Classified school employees provide valuable services to the school and students of Healdsburg schools. They contribute to the establishment and promotion of a positive instructional environment and play a vital role in providing for the welfare and safety of the Healdsburg schools and students. So classified employees employed by Healdsburg Unified School District strive for excellence in all areas relative to the educational community, and thereby it would be our privilege to honor them with the Classified School Employees Week. So again, just an opportunity to honor everyone from our custodians to our amazing food services staff to our drivers who work really hard to make sure that the basic needs of our students are met.
Can I get,
I will move for the adoption of Resolution 2416.
And I will second. And this is a roll call vote again.
Vice President Lopez Jimenez.
Aye.
Trustee Potmasil.
Aye.
Trustee McAllister.
Aye.
Trustee Lopez Pardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. 11.1, school business continued. 11.1D, school board member request to leave of absence reimbursement. Presented to us by, by Chris.
Oh, you're good.
Okay.
Might be the latest scheduled break we've ever had in a board meeting. So I thought we were at break. There is a provision in Ed Code, and you'll see a letter there requesting it for trustees that are school employees to receive leave automatically, essentially, with a board resolution from the district that they work in, so that they can do school board business in the district that they represent on the school board as a trustee. So we have two trustees, Trustee Lopez and Arceli.
Lopez, that Lopez.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Lupe, who works at Rincon Valley at Madrone School as a school counselor, and then Arceli Roma Flores, who's a director of curriculum instruction in the Bellevue School District. This would enable them to be able to visit our schools and see what's going on. They've actually already made one visit, and it wouldn't be taken out of their personal leave, and we would, in fact, reimburse their district for their time away. So we have an employee here who is on another school board that we do the same thing for. That's actually how we knew about it. Hadn't heard of it before that. But it is a good way for our trustees to be able to be more active during the school day and see what's going on in the schools. So this is not a resolution. So you just need a motion.
Can I get a motion?
Yeah. I'll move for the approving the request of two board members regarding leave of absence reimbursement.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, moving on to 11.1E, Resolution 24-17 regarding the sale and disposal of surplus property.
Yes, so this is two really old school buses. One that was bought the year I graduated from high school and one that was bought the year I graduated from college. So we're into 30 years ago. We actually, I'm not sure if it was one of these buses. We had a bus breakdown full of students on the 880 on a field trip a couple weeks ago that had to be towed off full so they could get out of danger's way. So it is really important that we get rid of the buses that don't work and we make sure we have good working buses. So these are two that we've deemed obsolete and no longer need, so we just need to declare them surplus.
So Chris, we have buses.
We have extra buses at this point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and some are limping along and we're keeping them going. It's an interesting, I'm not going to talk too long because we're so late, but we have several electric buses, which are great in concept. But there's a big negative in that they have a 75 mile range. So they're really only useful for morning routes and then taking kids home. We can't use them for field trips. We can't use them for sporting events generally, especially if there's a big hill, the range decreases. So those are great, but we got to keep our diesel buses working as well. So yeah.
All right. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Oh, it's a resolution.
Roll call. All right. Vice President Lopez Jimenez.
Aye.
Trustee Potmasil. Aye. Trustee McAllister. Aye. Trustee Lopez Pardo.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any reports? Do we have a HEF report tonight?
Do not have a HEF report.
All right. I had a report tonight. All right. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Good evening. So, funny, I was on the 880 about 15 years ago and the bus broke down.
Flashback.
Same bus.
Yeah. Honestly, could have been.
I tell you, we were in the Baptist parking lot and they opened up their church and they let us in. The children were 7 and 8 years old. They were little guys.
Oh,
We'd
wow.
taken them to Lawrence Hall of Science, yeah. And so the church opened up. They let us in for the bathrooms and all of that for the kids. I think we got home at 1 a.m. It also had to be towed.
Yeah, that was worse than this last one. So, and thankfully it was high school kids this time. Yeah.
So I'm glad that bus is gone. I'm going to report for HADA for HES. The final field trips are happening at HES. FMC, the testing students They are finishing up on the speaking part of LPAC, and state testing for Fitch Mountain starts at the end of April. Lots of field trips are planned for Fitch Mountain at this time, and teachers are working hard on their last project-based learning. Healdsburg Junior High, the math department has continued to work on research via lesson study, and by far it is the best professional development I've ever been in. We have a presentation happening May 3rd at Sonoma State University. Healdsburg Junior High is presenting. There are 70 attendees. And just a note, summer school is happening at the junior high this year, and it happened last year. So we're hoping for a bye next year. The next play is happening at Healdsburg Junior High. It's called The Enchanted Bookstore, and the kids are having a great time practicing for that. Healdsburg High School. Excuse me, when is the play? Well, I'm waiting for the testing to be done, because sometimes the testing, we had a date, and so we've moved the date because sometimes testing goes a little bit longer depending upon how many kids are present, how many are absent. So tentatively, we're looking in the week of the 20th, but depending upon testing, we may have to move to the next week. We had scheduled for April, but May. The high school is currently prepping for scholarship night, and the juniors began testing this week. As I've said before, at each time at the meetings, the teachers want to continue to be at the table to discuss that LCAP. They really want to discuss it and help develop it and make changes to it because it's what drives the money. We are a small district, and timely communication is important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have a CSEA report? All right. Do we have a student trustee report? No, we do not. Yeah. And do we have a board of trustees report? No. All right.
Can I propose we just go power through? We have 3 more items. Principals. Yeah. You can
Second that motion.
Yeah. Thank you, principals, for joining us. All right. Moving on to 11.3, personnel. We have a public hearing.
Gavel us in. So this is public hearing for reopeners for CSEA. Any public comments? Yep.
All right. Thank you.
Trustees, my name is Linda Cade. I lived in Healdsburg for a while. My family's been here for 4 generations. And I'm here to express my dissatisfaction with how Randy Parmeter was discarded. And his family has been in this area for a long time, a personal friend. And so I'm representing myself and others, objecting to the routine items and accept donations for the Russian River Rodeo Association. That money was intended for the Bulldogs, and Randy Parmeter, with his foresight, was planning ahead and is creating the Healdsburg Sports Foundation, which that $5,000 needs to be allocated towards. So there was a big mix-up and miscommunication, and it's disgraceful how Randy was just dismissed. And we are prepared to file a claim for that $5,000 for the Bulldogs. So that needs to be remedied. And we would appreciate it for those of us who appreciate Healdsburg football. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any CSEA related comments? I don't see any. We can close the. All right. So we can move on to the reopeners for CSEA. So we have reopened salary and benefits, both of us. That's what's permitted contractually when the whole contract's not open. So negotiations will commence sometime in May. And we do need the board to approve our sunshine letters.
Do I have a?
Yeah.
So moved.
I'll second.
Okay. Is it a roll call or is it a?
No.
It's a regular vote.
Are all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right. And, oh, yep. Hold on. 11.3, C, new job description on behavioral case manager presented to us by Karen.
So this is a first read. We'll come back to you for approval in a month. You want me just to fire through it real quick? Yeah, so this is a new job description that will support student behaviors. So many school districts have this position. It is short of being a behavior specialist, but it's somebody that still possesses special training and certification to support behavior plans. And so there's someone who can take data and help with staff training and monitoring to make sure behavior plans that are in place for students to hopefully promote more positive behaviors in the classroom or in the school happen. So it is a classified position. It's not a certificated position, and it would be new to us for next year.
Thank you.
Are we looking at this position being long-term?
Potentially, yeah.
Is it funded by?
It would be funded out of the general fund.
General fund.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's all the special money's gone.
Yeah. No, this is
No,
exciting.
I mean, there are
This
grants
is-
and stuff, but ESSER,
Yeah, this is great.
ESSER is over. Yeah. So.
All right.
And this is district-wide.
Correct.
Thank you.
Do we need a motion?
Nope. We're gonna move. We will move and approve next month.
All right, Board of Trustees reports, comments, or requests for information? No. All right, and we don't need to go back to closed session, right? No. All right, so calling the meeting to end at 8:29.
Thank you.
Thank you.